Hi guys, it's Miss Kim here with another video in my series of videos on art history. Remember, you can use these videos for your Tuesday class art classes, or if you're in my Recyclables or Creation Stations on Thursday. You don't have to do any particular ones. If you're just in Tuesday, you can pick any of the artists that I'm doing. If you are in my Tuesday class and then you also have my Thursday Creation Station and Recyclables, then you'll probably be working through all of these famous artist videos. So each one of these videos is for 2 class periods. The first video will be a bio, some information about the artist, and then I will give you some assignments that you can work to complete over the next class period. So the artist that I have to share with you today is a modern contemporary artist. She's still very prolific, still working today, and her name is Yayoi Kusama. If you're in Japan, where she lives, you would pronounce it Kusame, Yayoi. But Yayoi Kusama. And so Yayoi Kusama is well known. She has the nickname of the Princess of Polka Dots because she is really well known for her use of polka dots in her artwork. So, like I said, she is a contemporary artist. She was born in 1929, so if you do the math, she is actually 90 years old right now, turning 91 this year. She's best known, besides just for the polka dots, for her sculpture work and for these big installation room pieces that she does. She's a painter, she is a performance artist, she's known for contributions that she's done to, she's written poetry and fiction work. She's very big inspiration in the fashion world, and very interested in fashion herself, as you will see, and just music and all kinds of different types of art. She's really known for fusing several different genres together in her art. She explores feminism, minimalism, pop art, abstract art, and surrealism, all in her artwork. She's widely considered to be one of the most important living artists to come out of Japan, and very well respected in Japan and around the world. So she was born and raised in a part of Japan that is called Matsumoto. She grew up during World War II, and she was trained really in the traditional Japanese style of art. It's actually called Nihonga, but that basically just means traditional style Japanese art and using traditional materials. However, that wasn't really what was for her. That didn't really inspire her, and she kind of goes against her, parents' wishes, and is really drawn to and inspired by the New York avant-garde pop art scene that's sort of happening kind of in this like late 1950s era. And so she actually moves to New York in 1958. She was a big part of that New York art scene that was going on all throughout the 60s and into the early 70s. She first comes to the attention of the public by doing these really sort of bizarre and startling performance art pieces. So she would get other people to join her and basically do like these sort of pop-up art installations. Sometimes the galleries or the museums knew that she was going to be doing it. They often didn't know what she was doing. Sometimes it would be on the street or it would be at a concert. And she basically would have people come out that she had painted their bodies in polka dots, and just do this sort of pop-up art show. So since the 1970s, though, she has really sort of shifted and started focusing on more big like installation pieces and large sculptures. And you can find these all over the world in all kinds of different museums, including the Yayoi Kusama Museum in Japan, in Tokyo. One aspect of Kusama's artwork that really is the reason she creates art, and a theme that runs through all of her artwork, even though it might not be visible to just the normal person seeing it without knowing her background, is her struggles with mental health. So she's been very open and outspoken about these struggles. It's not something that she's hides. It's very much a part of her life and a part of her artwork. So much so that she even chooses to live full-time in a mental health hospital currently, and she has since the late 1970s, I believe. So this starts when she's kind of around the age of 10. And a lot of it has to do with the way that she grew up, growing up in the during this war period. So around 10, she starts to experience what she describes as hallucinations. And she says that she sees these bright flashes of lights, these auras around people and around objects, and also dense fields of dots. So she would just see these endless, infinite, like fields of polka dots. I kind of imagine it's a little bit like if you've ever rubbed your eyes really, really, really hard, and then when you open them, you sort of see all those dots and stuff. And I imagine that's sort of like what she's seeing, but all the time and a lot more intense. So she also, in these hallucinations, sees a lot of flowers, and the flowers will speak to her, according to Kusama. And then the other thing that she would see in these hallucinations would be patterns in fabric. So she would see these like undulating, sort of never-ending patterns of fabric rippling and coming to life and multiplying. So these hallucinations and some of her other fixations sort of became this inspiration behind her artwork, a way to get what she was seeing outside of her head. And also is where this lifelong fixation and on dots that you see repeated throughout her artwork. During this time, so when she's about 13, she's also sent to work in a parachute factory. This is during World War II. And she credits that time of living through the war, where she was living in this really oppressed kind of lifestyle where, there were bomb threats all the time, and planes flying overhead, sirens going off, and she's 13 years old and she's working in a factory. She credits this as the reason why she goes on to be really value these ideas of personal and creative freedom, because she had experienced this extreme oppression. And so this is why she sort of threw off any kind of restrictive social norms, even, to just be completely free with her creative expression. She experimented a lot with what she called abstracted natural forms. And we've talked a little bit about what abstract means and how that it's not anything that's concrete. It's not representative of anything, that it can be symbolic, but it doesn't look like anything that you see in reality. So what she was doing was she was actually experimenting with natural forms, so things that you did see in reality, and trying to abstract them somehow, make them not look like themselves. And so some of the things she would do is using watercolor, acrylics, oil paints. She would paint all over floors and walls and canvases and household objects like ladders and tables and basically anything, furniture and things like that, shoes, and even people. And so she would sort of almost camouflage their natural form with this abstracted, be it polka dots or something else that would make it look not like itself and not like you would normally see it. So it's almost giving you, when you look at some of these installation works, it's almost disruptive to your sense of reality because you recognize that it's a floor and a wall or a room, but everything is covered in these polka dots, which if you've ever tried to stare at like a polka dotted fabric or something for a long amount of time, you know how the dots can sort of start to float around and move and almost sort of mess with your sense of reality anyways. So she was very much into this abstraction of natural forms. So she called these fields of polka dots that she was painting infinity nets. And they were taken directly from these hallucinations that she was seeing, where she was seeing polka dots everywhere. Her first series of large-scale paintings that she did was actually titled Infinity Nets, and some of the pieces were over 30 feet long. So she's working on very large scale, which just sort of adds to that disruptive factor when you're looking at all these polka dots for a very, even a short amount of time if you're really focusing on them, where it sort of disrupts your view and almost starts to give you sort of like a hallucinatory effect of seeing things moving when they're not. So a lot of the themes that she sort of explores in these works are the ideas of infinity, of endless time and space, and sort of a nothingness in those works. Like I said, she had moved to America in the very end of the 1950s and into the 60s. During that time, she became friends with another very famous artist, Georgia O'Keeffe, who was a big inspiration to her, and she had done a lot of like correspondence with Georgia O'Keeffe. And Georgia O'Keeffe would work later to also try to really help with getting gallery showings and things of Kusama's work. She quickly became a part of the New York avant-garde scene and made a lot of really close friends in that scene, and had a lot of people who were really interested in what she was doing. Friends with fellow artists Donald Judd and Eva Hess, who was a sculptor. And in the 1960s, she's working on, again, covering these objects, these normal everyday objects, and abstracting them. So things like ladders, chairs, shoes. And she's working really, really prolifically and in bulk, and just like mass producing objects, mass producing art shows. She also starts kind of adapting the very widely recognizable image that she portrays during this time. So she starts being photographed and appearing in public in her very signature bobbed, brightly colored wigs and these really avant-garde, colorful outfits that often were representative of her artwork, even repeating the same pattern. So sometimes you will see images of her, and I have a little slideshow of some images of her artwork and of her where you actually see her actually blending in with her artwork. In 1963, Kusama starts experimenting with these ideas. So continuing on the idea of this, like, sort of making works of art that give you this impression of an infinity, of a nothingness, of like this just endless space. She starts experimenting with these mirror and infinity room installations. And she still continues to make these today, and they're pretty widely seen around the world. You can find them in a lot of different museums all over the world. So these are rooms that were constructed specifically for these installations, and they're lined with mirrored glass all around the walls, and oftentimes there will be like hanging neon balls or lights that are hanging that basically what they do is sort of reflect off the mirror. So the viewer comes into the room and will often either stand on a platform or sometimes look into a viewer viewfinder type thing, and they see the light bouncing off of these mirrors that are covering every surface in the room. And it basically can be very disturbing for